The voice that made you feel everything. Aretha Franklin and what the Queen of Soul really meant. There was a voice that could make you cry without warning, could lift you up when you were down, could make you feel every emotion that existed all at once. A voice so powerful and so full of feeling that when it came through the radio or the record player, everything else stopped and you just listened. That voice belonged to Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, and if you grew up black in the 1960s, 70s, or 80s, her music was the soundtrack to your life. She sang about respect and love and heartbreak and faith and freedom, and somehow when Aretha sang it, it felt like she was singing directly to you. She understood exactly what you were going through. She wasn't just a singer, she was a cultural force, a symbol of black excellence and black womanhood. A preacher's daughter who brought the gospel intensity of the church into secular music and created something that had never existed before. When Aretha sang Respect, she wasn't just asking for it, she was demanding it. And every black person listening understood that she was demanding it for all of us. When she sang Natural Woman, she was celebrating a kind of femininity that didn't require apology or diminishment. When she sang anything, you felt it in your soul because that's what she had. Soul that she poured into every note, every run, every moment of every song. Do you remember the first time you really heard Aretha Franklin? Not just heard her music playing in the background, but really listened and felt the full power of that voice? Maybe it was Respect playing on the radio, those opening notes, and then Aretha spelling it out. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, turning Otis Redding's song into something completely different. Something that spoke specifically to black women's demand for dignity and recognition. Maybe it was Chain of Fools, or Think, or I Say a Little Prayer. Any of the dozens of hits that defined an era? Maybe it was hearing her sing at church or at a community event, understanding that this wasn't just entertainment. This was something sacred and powerful that connected directly to the black experience. Aretha Louise Franklin was born in 1942 in Memphis, Tennessee, but grew up in Detroit, Michigan, where her father, C.L. Franklin, was the pastor of New Bethel Baptist Church. Reverend C.L. Franklin was famous in his own right, a powerful preacher whose sermons were recorded and sold across the country, whose church attracted thousands of worshipers, who was a celebrity in the black community and a civil rights activist. Growing up in that environment, surrounded by the music and passion and community of the black church, shaped everything about Aretha's approach to music and performance. The church was where Aretha learned to sing, standing up in front of congregations as a child, feeling the Spirit move through her and through the people listening. Gospel music taught her about vocal runs and emotional expression, about building intensity and releasing it, about connecting with audiences on a spiritual level. The techniques she learned singing gospel, the way she could take a single word and stretch it across multiple notes, the way she could make her voice soar and then bring it back down to a whisper, the way she could make you feel like she was testifying about the deepest truths, all of that came from the church. But growing up in Reverend Franklin's house also meant being exposed to the wider world of black culture and politics. Her father's friends and visitors included Martin Luther King Jr., Mahalia Jackson, Sam Cooke, and other major figures in civil rights and music. Young Aretha was absorbing lessons about dignity and resistance, about the role of black artists in the freedom struggle, about the connection between spiritual expression and political consciousness. All of this would shape her career and her understanding of what it meant to be a black artist in America. She started her professional career singing gospel, recording her first album at age 14 for a small gospel label. Her early gospel recordings show the raw power that was already present. That incredible voice that could fill a church or an arena, that could make people weep or shout or fall to their knees. But as she got older, Aretha wanted to sing secular music to reach broader audiences, to express the full range of human emotion beyond just religious themes. Her father supported this transition, understanding that she had gifts that needed to be shared with the world. Her early secular career in the early 1960s with Columbia Records was frustrating. The label didn't know what to do with her, tried to make her into a jazz singer or a pop singer, put her with producers and arrangers who didn't understand her strengths. The records were professionally made but lacked the fire and passion that made Aretha special. She wasn't failing exactly, but she wasn't breaking through either. Wasn't becoming the star that everyone who heard her knew she could be. Everything changed in 1967 when she signed with Atlantic Records and started working with producer Jerry Wexler. Wexler understood what Columbia hadn't, that Aretha needed to be in an environment where she could draw on her gospel roots, where her piano playing and arranging instincts could be incorporated, where the production would support rather than constrain her powerful voice. He took her to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, to record with Southern soul musicians who understood the black church and R&B traditions that Aretha was drawing from. The first song they recorded at those sessions was a cover of Otis Redding's song about a man asking his woman for respect. But Aretha transformed it completely, turning it into a woman's demand for respect from a man who wasn't giving her what she deserved. She added the R-E-S-P-E-C-T spelling section, added the "sock it to me" refrain with her sisters Carolyn and Irma singing backup, and fused the whole thing with a combination of sass and power that made it undeniable. When that record came out in 1967, it became an instant anthem. Not just for women demanding respect from men, but for black people demanding respect from white America. For anyone who had been made to feel less than demanding to be recognized as fully human. Do you remember how respect felt when you first heard it? How Aretha's voice commanded your attention? How the spelling of the word made it impossible to misunderstand what she was demanding? How the whole song radiated confidence and power? For black women especially, hearing Aretha demand respect with such conviction was transformative. She wasn't asking nicely or hoping someone would be kind enough to give her respect. She was stating plainly that respect was owed to her, that she wouldn't accept anything less, and if you couldn't give it to her, she'd find it somewhere else. That attitude, that refusal to settle or compromise on basic dignity, resonated deeply with black women who were fighting for respect. In their relationships, their workplaces, their communities, and their country. The hits kept coming in 1967 and 1968. Baby, I Love You, Chain of Fools, Think, I Say a Little Prayer, Ain't No Way. Each one showcased different aspects of Aretha's artistry and emotional range. Chain of Fools was about being stuck in a relationship you knew was wrong, but couldn't leave. Think was another demand for respect and consideration, this time with an unstoppable groove, and Aretha's sisters providing the perfect call and response. I Say a Little Prayer took Burt Bacharach's sophisticated pop composition and infused it with so much soul and feeling that it became something entirely different. What made Aretha special wasn't just the power of her voice, though that was extraordinary. It was her ability to inhabit a song completely, to make you believe she was living every word she sang. When she sang about heartbreak, you felt her pain. When she sang about joy, you felt her happiness. When she sang about demanding respect, you felt her determination and strength. She wasn't performing emotions, she was channeling them, making herself vulnerable and powerful simultaneously. Her piano playing was an essential part of her artistry that sometimes gets overlooked. Aretha was an accomplished pianist who often played on her own recordings, and her approach to the piano informed her vocal style. She understood harmony and arrangement, could build a song from the ground up, knew exactly what musical choices would support and enhance her vocal performance. Watching her perform live, sitting at the piano and singing at the same time, you saw the complete artist, not just a voice, but a musician who understood every aspect of what she was creating. The late 1960s and early 1970s were Aretha's peak commercial and artistic period. She had hit, won after Grammy, became one of the biggest stars in America. But her success wasn't just about selling records, it was about what she represented. At a time when the civil rights movement was fighting for black equality, when black power was emerging as a political and cultural force, when black people were demanding recognition and respect, Aretha Franklin's music embodied all of those struggles and aspirations. She was proof of black excellence, a woman from Detroit who could outsing anyone, who commanded stages and studios with absolute authority, who refused to be diminished or dismissed. Her performance of Precious Lord at Martin Luther King Jr.'s funeral in 1968 showed the full depth of her artistry and her connection to the civil rights movement. Standing at the piano, voice breaking with genuine grief, she sang the old gospel hymn that had been one of Dr. King's favorites. In that moment, she wasn't the Queen of Soul performing for an audience. She was a member of the community mourning a fallen leader, using her gift to help process collective grief and pain. The performance was devastating and beautiful, showing that Aretha's talent could serve purposes beyond entertainment, that her voice could be an instrument of healing and solidarity. Her song, Think, released in 1968, became another anthem, this time with a more explicit political edge. The lyric about freedom, 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 resonated with the black freedom struggle, with the demand for liberation that was central to the civil rights and Black Power movements. Whether Aretha intended the song as explicitly political or was simply singing about personal relationships, audiences heard the political message and adopted it as an anthem of liberation. For young Black girls growing up in the 1960s and 70s, Aretha Franklin was a model of what Black womanhood could be. She was powerful and talented, successful and respected, uncompromising and unapologetic. She didn't try to make herself smaller or less threatening to be acceptable to white audiences. She didn't straighten her hair in the early years. She wore it in a natural style before that became common. She carried herself with dignity and demanded to be treated accordingly. She showed Black girls that they could be successful on their own terms, that they didn't have to compromise their identity or their standards to achieve greatness. The 1972 gospel album Amazing Grace, recorded live at New Bethel Baptist Church in Los Angeles, showed Aretha returning to her roots and creating one of the greatest gospel albums ever made. Backed by the Southern California Community Choir and with Reverend James Cleveland, she sang traditional gospel songs with such power and conviction that the album became the best-selling gospel album of all time. Watching the documentary footage of those sessions, you see Aretha completely in her element, channeling the Holy Spirit, making the church rock with the same intensity she brought to secular music. The album proved that she hadn't left the church behind when she went secular. She had brought the church with her, infusing everything she sang with that gospel intensity and spiritual depth. Her voice had an instantly recognizable quality, that rich, powerful tone that could be tender or fierce, that could whisper or wail, that contained multitudes. Other singers tried to imitate her style, but nobody could replicate what Aretha did naturally. The vocal runs that seemed effortless, the way she could hold a note and add vibrato that made your spine tingle, the way she could take a simple melody and ornament it with additional notes that enhanced rather than overwhelmed the song. These were the marks of a true master. Do you remember hearing Aretha on the radio and immediately recognizing her voice? That moment of recognition, of knowing instantly that this was the Queen of Soul, was part of the joy of listening to music in the 1960s and 70s. Radio DJs would play Aretha constantly, understanding that her records were what listeners wanted to hear, that her music could change the mood of an entire afternoon or evening. Her songs became the soundtrack to parties, to family gatherings, to quiet moments alone when you needed to feel something deeply. The respect she commanded in the music industry was immense. Other artists, Black and white, men and women, acknowledged her as the greatest vocalist of her generation. When younger singers like Whitney Houston emerged decades later, they cited Aretha as their primary influence and inspiration. The standard she set for vocal excellence, for emotional authenticity, for professional integrity, shaped what excellence meant in soul and R&B music. Her personal life had struggles and challenges that she navigated while maintaining her career. Relationships that didn't work out, business dealings that sometimes left her frustrated, health issues that she dealt with privately. But through all of this, she maintained her dignity and her commitment to her art. She didn't let personal problems become public spectacles, didn't exploit her pain for publicity. She kept working, kept creating, kept using her gift to make music that mattered. The 1980s and 90s saw Aretha continuing to record and perform, adapting to changing musical styles while maintaining her essential identity. Her 1985 album, Who's Zoomin' Who, introduced her to a new generation of fans, proving she could work with contemporary production and remain relevant without compromising her artistry. Her duet with George Michael on I Knew You Were Waiting for Me topped the charts and won a Grammy. She sang at presidential inaugurations, at the Kennedy Center Honors, at every major event that wanted the best vocalist in America. Her performance at Barack Obama's inauguration in 2009 was a full-circle moment. The Queen of Soul, now in her late 60s, wearing an elaborate hat that became instantly iconic, singing My Country 'Tis of Thee at the swearing-in of the first Black president. For Black Americans watching, seeing Aretha Franklin at that inauguration connected decades of struggle and achievement. From the civil rights movement she had supported to this historic moment of a Black family entering the White House. When Aretha Franklin died in August 2018 at the age of 76, the outpouring of grief was global but particularly intense in Black communities that had grown up with her music, that had used her songs to mark the important moments of their lives. Weddings had featured her love songs, funerals had included her gospel performances, protests had adopted her anthems of respect and freedom. She had been there for everything, providing the soundtrack to Black life for more than 5 decades. Her funeral in Detroit was a celebration that lasted for hours, with performances by Stevie Wonder, Ariana Grande, Faith Hill, and many others paying tribute to her legacy. Bill Clinton spoke, Jesse Jackson spoke, countless others testified to what she had meant to them and to the world. But the most powerful moments were when her music played, when everyone remembered that voice and what it had given to the world. Looking back, Aretha Franklin's legacy is about more than just great music, though she certainly created that. It's about what she represented: Black excellence, Black womanhood, Black dignity, Black power. She showed that a Black woman from Detroit could be the greatest vocalist in the world, could demand and receive respect, could influence culture and politics while remaining true to her roots and her community. She proved that gospel and soul weren't lesser forms of music, but American art forms as sophisticated and meaningful as any classical tradition. For generations of Black people, Aretha's music provided joy and comfort, celebration and catharsis. Her songs marked milestones, expressed feelings that were hard to put into words, connected individuals to a broader Black cultural tradition. Young people discovering her music today still feel the power of that voice, still understand why she was the queen, still find in her performances something that speaks to fundamental human emotions and experiences. The title Queen of Soul wasn't just marketing, it was recognition of her dominance and excellence in the genre she helped define. Soul music, that combination of gospel intensity, R&B rhythm, and deep emotional expression, found its most perfect voice in Aretha Franklin. She set the standard that everyone else was measured against, created a body of work that will endure as long as people listen to music. What's your favorite Aretha Franklin song, and what does it mean to you? Do you remember where you were when you heard about her passing? How did her music shape your understanding of what Black women could be and do? What moment or performance of hers stays with you most powerfully?